So you want to adopt from foster care, and you've heard about the huge need for siblings to be adopted together, but you're a little bit worried. I mean, taking on more than one kid at a time sounds really hard. I mean, let's be real, adoption in itself can feel really intimidating at times. So how do you know if adopting siblings is the right choice for you? Today I want to compare and contrast what it is like to adopt one child versus what it is like to adopt two or more children. So let's jump in. Hey there, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Katie, and if you're not, welcome back. If you're one of my subscribers, thank you so much for being here. If you don't know, I am an adoption consultant, and I work with families from all across the country who are looking to adopt waiting children from foster care. I provide 100% online consultation calls where we can talk through all of your questions and concerns. We can bring up specific situations you have, and I can also help connect you to agencies and other resources you may need in your area. And today's topic is something I talk about with a lot of my families. So if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, feel free to check out the link down below. It's also in a pinned comment. And if you click through that, you can find my website and schedule a call with me today. I just want to let you know to start that I have adopted one child and then I adopted two siblings at a time. So I have experience with both of these. And so a lot of this information I'm going to give you is coming from my own experience, but it's also coming from research that I have done. So I want to keep the whole thing positive. I don't really want to go into like pros and cons of each. I want to talk about the benefits of adopting one child at a time, and then I would like to compare that to the benefits of adopting siblings. Let's start off with the benefits of adopting one child at a time. Now, obviously, I think the first benefit is that it feels a lot less intimidating to adopt one child at a time versus taking on more than one kid. And so a lot of these pros or benefits of adopting one child at a time kind of fall under that umbrella. So the first one I would say is that if you are only adopting one child at a time, you have more time and attention you can give to that child because your time and attention is not being divided across all of these different kids who really need you. And yeah, if you already have children in your home, obviously your attention will be a little bit divided, but it won't be divided amongst kids who are new to your family. So I think that is definitely a benefit of adopting one child at a time and a reason why it feels a little less intimidating to do that than adopt siblings. The other thing is just by having less children in your home, you are less overwhelmed. You have less to worry about in terms of schedules and managing behaviors of your different kids and managing sibling dynamics. And, there's a lot less that will be on your plate if you adopt one child at a time. So obviously that can be a deciding factor for a lot of people. And like even the number of appointments you may have with children who are adopted, who may need special services or therapy or things like that, that can quickly become pretty overwhelming when you have multiple kids who all need these different services and appointments, and then you're also having caseworker visits at first. So that is definitely a reason why some people decide not to adopt siblings. And what I would consider the last benefit of adopting one child at a time versus adopting a sibling group is that if you discover that your child's needs are much greater than you anticipated, which to be fair does happen quite a bit in adoption, then you can make the decision of whether or not you think that child can handle having a sibling. Instead of if you adopt them with a sibling, there's nothing you can do about it. If that child needs a lot of extra support and a lot of extra help, you kind of just have to roll with it. But if you were thinking, eventually I might want to adopt more than one kid, and your first child you've adopted has a lot more needs than you anticipated, you can just be done if you want to. You don't have to adopt again, and you can focus on the needs of the child that's in your home who really needs you and needs your help there. So those are some benefits of adopting one child. However, I think you'll be a little bit surprised at how many benefits I am going to share about adopting siblings. So the number one obvious benefit of adopting a sibling is that you're going to be meeting a huge need. Sibling adoptions are actually classified as special needs adoptions because siblings are much harder to place, probably because of all those reasons I just mentioned about the benefits of adopting one child at a time. A lot of people are really intimidated by the thought of adopting more than one kid, which I do understand, But there are a lot of other benefits too. If you are going into adopting from foster care, obviously you're doing it to grow your family, but a lot of times we're also doing it because we see a need in our community, we see a need in our world, and we want to make a difference. And this is a huge way that you can make a difference by helping siblings stay together, not be separated into different homes, which would just be incredibly difficult. So if you can be a part of that and you think that you're cut out to do it, it can be a really great thing. I think one of the biggest benefits of adopting siblings is you're allowing those siblings to stay together and to keep a piece of their family of origin with them. A lot of adoptees, especially as they get older, really struggle with identity and wondering kind of like who they are and who their family of origin really was, and are they good and are they not good? There's so many questions that can cross an adoptee's mind. And I think there's something really helpful about having a sibling who has kind of gone through that whole experience with you. I think it can really help with not feeling that loss of identity from your first family when you get to take a big piece of your family of origin with you into your quote unquote new life. And along with that, it's kind of like a built-in support system or comfort for siblings to have one another. So even if the siblings are struggling to adjust to your home, like if the child, maybe one of the children's really fearful of a new situation or really worried, they have that other sibling to kind of be there with them and comfort them, someone they know, as they get closer to trusting you and building that relationship with you as the caregiver. Another reason why I think sibling adoption is highly underrated is that you have to realize that if they are trying to place siblings together in an adoptive home, that is because those kids are truly doing well together. You have to realize that, like I said earlier, it's much easier to place children individually rather than in sibling pairs or in sibling groups. And so if the system or the caseworkers are fighting to keep these kids together, that's usually because they're doing really well together. There are situations where siblings are separated, not just because they're considered hard to place, but sometimes the siblings could be like re-traumatizing each other, or they don't have a healthy attachment to one another, and they are maybe one is abusive towards the other sibling or things like that. And so if you're keeping the siblings together, if the system has decided to keep the siblings together, there's usually a good reason for that. They're willing to fight for that because they see that there was a healthy attachment. And between my two oldest kids who we adopted together as siblings, we definitely saw that. Now, there was a little bit of like codependence and things like that were there, but those are things that we worked through over time. But they still had that really strong bond. They had a love for each other, and it would have been absolutely devastating if they had ever been separated. And so what's really encouraging is that if the child has the ability to form an attachment with a sibling and maintain it, that is kind of telling of the fact that they are capable of forming and maintaining attachments, which is huge in adoption. And so if your child knows how to form and maintain and has been allowed to maintain a healthy attachment with a sibling, they're much more likely to be able to form a healthy attachment with you as well eventually, because they have those skills. They have a good experience of having a healthy attachment. And so those skills can be transferred to the relationship with you as their parent. To me, it's a great indicator that you may not have as many attachment issues as you could in an individual child situation where maybe they've never really had an attachment that's lasted more than a few months or a couple years at a time. Another huge benefit is if you are adopting transracially. So in the situation with my husband and I, we are both white, like pretty white, okay? Like we like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings an awful lot. So pretty much as white as they come, okay? But we have 3 kids who are biracial, Black and white. And in our house, they outnumber us because they have siblings, and 2 of them are actually biologically related siblings. They have each other to kind of not have to feel like they stick out in the family. Like my husband and I have talked a lot, like what if we had 2 kids, or we had adopted 2 white children and then we adopted 1 Black child? I think it's really common for adoptees and transracial adoptions to feel like they always stuck out, or that they didn't fit in somehow, or that they felt like they didn't fit well in their family. And that really breaks my heart because I never want kids to feel that way. So I think when you adopt a sibling in a transracial adoption situation, they don't have to feel like they're the only one that doesn't fit in the family or doesn't match. it's kind of like our whole family is just kind of different. We're all coming together, and there's maybe 2 white parents or 2 black parents and 2 white kids or whatever the situation is. I think it just helps them feel a little bit less alone. So that's definitely a benefit in terms of transracial adoption as well. And I know I've already said a lot of benefits of adopting siblings. We had a really good experience adopting siblings. Don't get me wrong. It has been hard in many ways. There have been difficult parts, but I think overall it was a great fit for our family. And I really honestly had an easier time when we adopted the siblings versus when we adopted one child at a time. And maybe that was because I already had experience having an adopted child. I don't know, I was a little older, a little wiser, not much older or wiser, but a little bit. There can be a lot of factors, but I do think there's a couple more benefits that are really practical benefits I want to throw in here before we end. So first of all, this is like a super practical kind of funny one, but you only have to go through one adoption process. Like if you know that you are someone who's like, I don't want to just have an only child, or I know I'm going to want to adopt more than one child, you could do one adoption process and adopt multiple kids, 2, 3, 4 kids, whatever, siblings at once, and be done. Like you don't even have to maintain your license. You don't have to go to recertification classes. You can be done. You don't have to go through the entire process again, which to me is like a big benefit. That's one of the reasons we were open to siblings for our first adoption. We happened to get placed with a single child, but we were like, hey, we know we want to adopt more than one kid. We've never wanted to just have like an only child. And so we were kind of like, sure, we'll be open to siblings. But yeah, I mean, the adoption process is no joke. Like it takes a long time. There's a lot of emotional roller coaster elements of it. And so if you know you want to adopt more than one kid eventually, it doesn't hurt to be open to siblings because it'd be a lot easier to get it all done at once. And in the same vein as that, I think people underestimate how difficult the first 6 months to a year of your adoptive placement can be for you and for your kids. It is a very emotionally fraught time. And I'm sure there are people with different scenarios, like maybe others had it easier than we did in those first 6 months to a year. But I will tell you that with both of our adoptions, those were some of the most difficult times of my life. I was also so happy to have my kids there, and I was so glad that we were adopting them, but the struggle was so real. I mean, just adjusting to having kids, like the first time it was no kids to one kid, and then the second time we had like sibling dynamics we had to worry about and all of these things. It was a lot of adjustment. So we had 2 big adjustment periods rather than if you adopted 2 or 3 siblings all together, you're having one adjustment period. That adjustment period might be harder than if you had one child, but you only have to do it one time. So if you know you want to adopt more than one kid, it's really beneficial to at least be open to considering adopting siblings. You don't have to say yes just because you're considering it, but you can at least be open to it. And lastly, I'm someone who really values maintaining contact with birth parents if at all possible. And so if you have the ability to maintain contact with bio parents, it's a lot easier to do that if they all have the same parent. They all have the same mom or the same dad or whatever, and you want to maintain that contact. You don't have to have contact with 3 different families as you're trying to do that. I know, like I said, it's a very practical way, so that wouldn't be a deciding factor. But I do think if that's something you value and something you want to be able to do for your kids, it does make it a lot easier when they can just have like one Zoom call together and you only have to schedule one, or you have to only schedule one visit sometime. So there are some deep emotional reasons to why I think there are benefits to adopting siblings, but there are also some of those really practical ones. And something I just want to mention in case you do not know, if you say on your form that you are open to adopting 2 or 3 kids or whatever, that does not mean you will have to do that. If they come to you and they say, hey, we have this potential sibling group, would you be interested? You can read their profile. And if you think, you know what, I really don't think we're the right fit for these kids, you can say no, and it's okay. Like no harm, no foul. But if you say we are only open to one child, you'll never even see the files of those other kids. You'll never have the opportunity to even be considered for kids who could be a really great fit. And you know what? I just thought of one extra benefit I didn't write down, but if you can actually be matched a lot faster if you're open to siblings. I know with our first adoption, we were open to siblings, but we ended up being matched with an individual child. But the second time we adopted and we said yes to the siblings, it was like a month from the time we said we were interested in adopting again until we found a match. So that's pretty crazy. It's a pretty crazy fast timeline. But the truth is, they told us that there were no other families that were like interested in adopting these kids yet. Whereas with our daughter, who was adopted by herself, there were like 12 families. So you can see the difference there. There's a lot less people willing to adopt siblings, especially if they're a little bit older. But I think it's been a great experience for us. We don't regret it at all. I highly recommend being open to adopting siblings. I think there's so much good that can come out of it. So if you like this video, if it helped you in any way, if you could click the thumbs up button. And then also, I like to do this little thing sometimes where I see who my people are, as in the people who make it all the way to the end. And so if you're still here, that means you're my favorite. Don't tell the others. And we are going to put a secret emoji in the comments. So if you are still here in the comments, I want you to put an emoji of like a family that has more than one kid. I know there's like some with the mom and dad and 2 kids or something. So go ahead and drop that emoji in the comment below. And I'd also love to hear your thoughts about adopting siblings. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Hope you're having a great day, and I will see you next time.